Thank you for tuning in to Best Ball Study Hall. I am your host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. You can find me on X at Coach Retzlaff1. I just got out of school. It's been a fun, busy Monday. We are in the rapid fire drinking water from a fire hydrant season. So as you're taking in information, you're just gobbling it up and receiving new information and reacting. We're being liquid with the market. Something I wanted to show you. And before I was talking about school, one thing in school as a teacher, the word sit down is not two words, it's actually one word. It just goes sit down, and you tell the kid just sit down. And if you're a teacher, you fully understand when a kid's in your face and they need to just go sit down and do their work. Sit down is not two words, it is one word. So, speaking of sitting down, we're sitting down here at the table. We have a draft. I wanted to speak to how you dig out of a RB hole. I have Bijan Robinson at pick 8 and Devon Achane at pick 17. My receivers, okay, this is how you dig out of a hole. You go RB, and of course, the impossible task is how do you get receivers to recover back? I spoke with Justin Herzig on Best Ball Night School a couple weeks ago, and Justin Herzig spoke to the fact that the receiver position is just one position that is so hard and near impossible to catch up if you fall behind on the cliff. So where I'm at now with Bijan and Achan, I love that combination. I feel like it's going to be different. There will be representative exposure that other people have to this RB start. But here are my wide receivers: DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Diontae Johnson. No one said it would be pretty per se as far as studs. This isn't the CD Lamb, Amon Ra, AJ Brown territory. We're sacrificing receiver early with the running back position and commitment. And we're going into this tier of receivers I've spoken to before, where George Pickens is a receiver that if you start heavy at RB, he's just a marker of where you want to start and hopefully recover and retrieve wide receiver one value. So Amari Cooper there, he's a little older in the age cliff, but this isn't necessarily dynasty. This isn't even this is just best ball. So we have to understand that age isn't near as important in these best ball streets. I like Amari Cooper this year. Of course, he provides best ball greatness and he fills in as a wide receiver one. Calvin Ridley, I have huge confidence in, and we've spoken to the Titans exposure. We're very happy about the Tennessee Titans this year. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, it sounds like Hopkins is going to come back from his injury and be available for week one, but still, we are bullish on Calvin Ridley. My fourth receiver here is Diontae Johnson. So I feel like as my fourth receiver, I got a guy who's just going to gobble up so many targets. And as a fourth receiver, especially when I'm trying to retrieve and dial back after starting Bijan and Achan, I'm very excited about Diontae Johnson. Now, one mistake that I can see, if I want to be hypercritical of myself, I also want to get more Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. went the very direct pick after me. So today I put my head down. I had narrow tunnel vision. I go Moore, Cooper, Ridley. I know I got Bijan and Achan. Diontae Johnson just stood out to me and my eyes bulged and boom, I clicked on some Diontae Johnson to get some of that Tennessee Titans and Jacksonville Jaguars exposure. Would have been really nice in retrospect when I'm looking at this with Brian Thomas Jr. However, in another draft, I would want to click Brian Thomas Jr. So the person who went after me went and got BTJ. I'm happy to get Diontae Johnson as his fourth receiver because he will get so much more volume. I'm bullish on Brian Thomas Jr., but with me trying to bail out some water to catch up, having started RB, I really do like what I have in Diontae Johnson. And as we're going, the person after me who went with Brian Thomas Jr., let's just look at their team. They have Jalen Hurts, they've stacked Devonta Smith, and then their running backs are Breece Hall and James Cook. So they have some of that week 12 matchup, Jets and Bills. I have noticed week 12 provides a conundrum. Week 12 bye players, that Jets and Bills matchup is very dangerous, that you have to just be aware of how many Week 12 buys that you're stacking up. It can be very easy to stack Week 12 almost as much sometimes as Week 14. Not nearly as bad, but it still exists and is out there, especially when you're trying to draw in some correlation. So this person has Hurts with Devonta Smith, and their third receiver, which is their first receiver that I didn't mention before, Cooper Kupp. So overall, a pretty cool team. I like what they've got for their third receiver. But again, I like going back to what I did where I have DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, and Diontae Johnson. So I posted this on X. Bijan Achane had to dig out. What I've added on to since the tweet now is here with some Diontae Johnson. So let's go to a Best Ball Mania draft. I have a couple out there. I've gone 1-1 running back receiver. I've gone Garrett Wilson at 10 and Devon Achane at 15. I'm trying to get different combinatorial combinations out here in my builds. So Garrett Wilson could easily be in the top 5. He could even be the wide receiver 1 this year with Aaron Rodgers. Things have somewhat faded with the idea of Devontae Adams being the trade target for the Jets. It doesn't sound like that's really going to happen. In this position, Josh Allen, speaking to that Week 12 topical subject, Josh Allen is here in ADP. He's a 4th player down on the queue. I have gone a lot of Garrett Wilson and ventured to Josh Allen, but because I've done that before so many times, I want to differentiate, diversify internally. I also want to make sure I get Garrett Wilson spread apart exposure from Josh Allen. I don't want to knee jerk do that. Just like I don't want to knee jerk do AJ Brown combined with Jalen Hurts. That's something I spoke to about a week or two ago as well. So I want to separate and differentiate that. Now, with this being pick 34, I have Isaiah Pacheco. I don't really have a lot of Isaiah Pacheco. And I think I already have Devon Achane. This is Best Ball Mania. I'm going to push past Isaiah Pacheco is a lower roster player for me, just because I've been clicking so many different players. At a certain point, you have to make a stand on players, and you can't get exposure to necessarily everybody without making more of a stand. So I am actually going to venture towards Tank Dell here. I'm going to get Tank Dell, get part of that Houston Texans goodness, since I already have an anchor running back. My prior draft, I went Bijan and Achane. Well, here, since I went so heavy in that last draft, I'm going to go lighter at the running back position and add on to Garrett Wilson with Tank Dell. So my Best Ball Mania start in 4 picks at the 39. I will be looking at another wide receiver. I also might end up looking at Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is just such a good 4th round slam dunk player. I think in redraft, you have to consider Travis Etienne even more so than in best ball, or at least the way I think of it is I have fewer redraft teams. I'm going to be somewhere in the 300s off the top of my head in totality for best ball. And then I only have a handful comparatively redraft leagues. So I have to, I'm actually saying this out loud as I think about it. In these redraft streets, I'm really thinking that Travis Etienne is a player that I'm going to click, and he'll have a very palatable, easy ADP, just like he has had in best ball. So that's just like an inward thought that I want to express outward. I have another Best Ball Mania up here. Let me pull up my squad. I have a 1-2-5-2 build. Jane Daniels was named the starting quarterback, as if there was any drama about that, but it's so much fun to get that confirmation. We are in on Jaden Daniels. I promise Jaden Daniels isn't on every team that I have. I believe my quarterback exposure at the top, I can pull it up after this. It's Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts are my 2 top quarterbacks. And I'll pull up my quarterback exposure after we're done drafting. Jaden Daniels, so good. You love what he's putting on wax. And I'm a huge fan. I'm definitely in. I'm getting him in redraft. I'm getting him in dynasty. I had him in a startup. And of course, in best ball, I'm getting him a lot of places. Christian McCaffrey, I got with the 103. When he falls, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? If hopefully that's the correct phrase. My second running back is Blake Corum, so I gapped it from the third pick overall to 118. My wide receivers, Malik Neighbors, Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk falls at pick 27 with Christian McCaffrey. A lot of people are getting the falling knife in Brandon Ayuk, but it's not a falling knife, but they're getting the dip, right? Terry McLaurin is there with Jane Daniels. I have a ton of Terry and Daniels bags, but within Best Ball Mania, I don't have as many Best Ball Manias. I'm trying to get more volume for my budget. I don't have the Daniels McLaurin in Best Ball Mania, and I said to myself, man, I really want to get Daniels and McLaurin. I'm in on that stack as a whole this year. So give me Daniels and McLaurin. That's why I have on the squad. Brian Thomas Jr., yes, I've been trying to get my numbers up on him. I spoke on Player Profiler News Primetime this last weekend. Go check out that episode with Mike Lindbergh and I. We talked both about Brian Thomas Jr., how if you're not early, you're late. Well, the train is at the station and it's about to leave. You got to hop on now because Brian Thomas is really going to take off. And we look at the pendulum like a timeline or an accordion. When you expand out, early picks, it's Neighbors, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Late picks, it's Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton. And we expect every rookie wide receiver, the way people talk, they are going to hit. Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't really get near as much in that seventh round for consideration for being one of the top wide receivers performing this year. I think Brian Thomas Jr. could definitely be a third round pick next year. So why not draft like that? Jameson Williams is a lid lifter. He's my fifth receiver. So now I've got my base. I've talked about layers for running back rooms. How about layers in this receiver room? Neighbors, Ayuk, McLaurin are going to endure. They'll be good all season. Granted, Brandon Ayuk, we'll see how he does with coming right back at the beginning of the year. But I'm expecting Neighbors, Ayuk, McLaurin to just guide me throughout the entire season. Brian Thomas Jr., Jameson Williams may have some volatility. It may take some time to ramp up and onboard throughout the season. But I love the plays here. It's that Shawn Michaels super kick upside that we have. Tight end on this squad, Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers. I'm set and forget at my tight ends. So I'm very happy with the team I have so far. I had been hoping that with my exposure to Sam Laporta, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, I would be able to find my way to go get Jared Goff or Brock Purdy. Neither of those have hit. So I'm a little bit bummed out about that. I'm taking a look at my entire squad that I have here, and look who's fallen to me, Trevor Lawrence. All right, Trevor Lawrence is here, and I don't feel pressure to add to the running back position. I'm in a spot where I could be done at quarterback. I believe in Trevor Lawrence and Jaden Daniels. I believe in my tight ends, Laporta and Brock Bowers. I had really hoped to get quarterback exposure, Purdy, and more realistically here at this stage of the draft, go and get Jared Goff. But Jared Goff just went 2 picks before me here. So I was very close to drawing Jared Goff, which I would have loved to get some of that San Fran Lions exposure. But I have San Fran and Lions exposure for week 17. It's just going to be more secondary. You want things layered into your builds. So I don't mind it at all. And of course, you have to take what the board gives you. Here is Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to click on him to stack with Brian Thomas Jr. And my team in review, 2252. Jaden Daniels, Trevor Lawrence. I'm set and forget at quarterback. Tight end, Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers. I look at them both as elite usage for Brock Bowers this year, at least the usage that we want. Sam Laporta, we can already speak for him that he's leveled up. People don't like him at ADP, but look, I got him pick 46. 10 picks past his ADP. My running backs are Christian McCaffrey. He's my anchor, my stalwart. I need some luck with Blake Corum as my second running back, and my receivers, Malik Neighbors, Brandon Ayuk, Terry McLaurin, Brian Thomas Jr., and Jameson Williams. So I have gone over a couple Best Ball Mania drafts and a few drafts in totality. Let me go to completed. And I said I would speak to my exposure at quarterback because I wanted to talk about my quarterback exposure. Promise you, I don't have all Jaden Daniels. I'm sitting here. It says 195 teams. I have about 30 drafts out, so I may have 230, 240. I might get to that 250 rake back number on Underdog. We will see. The clock's cut down to 4 hours this Thursday. I'm recording on Monday afternoon. So everybody just get ready. I tend to check my drafts every 3 hours, like a cycle. And especially I'll still check my phone when I get alerts. So that way I don't miss. I may have to adjust that to every 2 hours, but it's a short temporary thing until we get to September when the season starts. Now, my top exposures at quarterback, and then we'll be on our way. Jaden Daniels, you love to see it, 14.4%. What I'm happy about with my quarterback exposure, I don't have anybody up in the 20th percentile, 25%. I don't have any crazy number. I have a flattened exposure at my quarterback position. Jalen Hurts, number 2 at 13.8%. So built within that, there's a lot of Daniels in McLaurin, a lot of Daniels with Commanders, be it Brian Robinson Jr., Luke McCaffrey. I've been trying to sprinkle in a little bit of Tayami Brown in this closing line value, in this closeout wave of drafts, a little bit of Diami Brown, because he will be maybe the second wide receiver. It's up in the air. It's up for grabs. And I like some requisite exposure, just like Jordan Whittington. I'm getting closeout exposure to Jordan Whittington. I won't have a mass amount like from the start of post NFL draft, but at least I'm being liquid and changing here as we are in August. My Jalen Hurts bags, of course, are going to tie into A.J. Brown. That's a bet on him. Will Levis, I have a balanced Titans exposure between Tajay Spears, Calvin Ridley, and DeAndre Hopkins. The one stand divergently that I do have, I know, is I have a lot more Tajay Spears and a lot less Tony Pollard. I've just taken that stand, but I have in the last wave clicked a little bit more Pollard. So there's some Pollard teams that are out there. I'm just not going to get there percentage wise on Tony Pollard, but I love Will Levis, my number 3 exposure quarterback post NFL draft. And this doesn't include Superflex. I actually in Superflex have a ton of Will Levis as well. So I'm big on him. Lamar Jackson, I'm very happy with that. 11.3%. I don't feel like I've clicked on him a lot, but you get these surprise players where you're like, wait a second, I really did click more of them more frequently than I realized. Ray Davis at the running back position comes to mind. I have a good chunk of Ray Davis, which I'm happy about. Then, of course, Kyler Murray. I believe in Kyler Murray to be a top 5 quarterback this year. And he's been drafted different waves. He and CJ Stroud, who Stroud is just underneath Kyler Murray here for my exposures. They have 10.8%, so I'm even on them. Stroud and Murray were like 30 picks apart for so much of the summer, and now they're just getting closer and closer. We push that accordion in, so it's getting much closer. So just to read off my top QB exposures again, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Will Levis, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and CJ Stroud there rounds out the tie with Kyler Murray. I've been Jeremiah. This has been Best Ball Study Hall. Stay liquid. Keep pushing through. We're in redraft season. Next week, I can talk about a little bit how redraft informs your best ball process and how we can get better at our redrafts. So find me on X at Coach Retzlaff1. Give this a like, give this a share, give me a follow everywhere. It really helps and goes a long way. Thank you.